This video is going to demonstrate how to find slope with rational coordinates, or basically when we have fractions as coordinate points. So, just like we would with any other two sets of points, we are going to use the formula for finding slope, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I can always begin by labeling my points. So I'm going to call this first point, point 1, so this would be x1, y1, and my second point, point 2, which is x2, y2. Okay, so now let's just go ahead and let's set up the formula. So in my numerator, I'm going to have my change in y, so negative 1/3 minus a negative 5. So right away, I know minus a negative is the same thing as plus, so I'm going to rewrite it as plus 5 over x2 minus x1, or in this case, negative 1/3 minus 1/6. So, because we're dealing with fractions, we are going to make sure we have common denominators, and we're going to handle our numerator and denominator kind of separately and as two problems. I'm going to highlight them. And more than ever, you want to make sure that you're really neat and that you're able to follow your own work, or I can follow your work when I'm grading. So in order to add fractions, we need a common denominator. So I can think of this 5 as 5 over 1, so my common denominator is going to be 3. Okay, so I have negative 1/3, and if I want this fraction to have a denominator of 3, I need to multiply the top and the bottom by 3. That gives me 15/3. So now, when I add and subtract fractions, I add and subtract the numbers in the numerator, and then I keep my denominator. So negative 1 plus 15 is 14. Okay, so I end up with 14/3 in the numerator. So I'm going to kind of highlight this, and actually, let's change that highlight color to yellow so it matches. And now let's do our work in the denominator. Okay, so again, I need a common denominator. So out of 3 and 6, my common denominator would be 6. So in order to get 6 in the bottom, I need to multiply the top and the bottom by 2. So I have negative 2/6 minus 1/6. Negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. And negative 3/6 reduces to negative 1/2. Okay, so I'm going to highlight that green so it matches. Okay, and I need to remember that this is all still really a division problem. Okay, so I really have 14/3 divided by negative 1/2. Okay, so now what you should remember about dividing with fractions is that we don't divide fractions. Instead, we multiply by the reciprocal. So I need to change this to a multiplication problem. Okay, so you might have learned to keep, change, flip. Okay, so you keep your 14/3. You're going to change this division to multiplication, and then we multiply by the reciprocal, which means we're flipping the numerator and the denominator. So instead of 1/2, that is 2 over 1. Now again, I remembered you always keep your sign. Okay, so the problem that I'm now doing is 14/3 times negative 2 over 1. Well, I know a positive times a negative is a negative. I would look to see if I could cross cancel anywhere, which in this case I cannot. So when I multiply with fractions, I just multiply across the top and then across the bottom. So 14 times 2 is 28, and 3 times 1 is 3. So my slope is negative 28 thirds. Okay, let's go ahead and let's do another example. So the next one I have is 3/5, 1/6, and 7/10, negative 2/3. Okay, so again, I'm using the same formula of y2 minus y1, change in y over change in x, x2 minus x1. Okay, so that means I'm going to be subtracting my y values and subtracting my x's. So let's go ahead and let's just set this up first. So negative 2/3 minus 1/6. Okay, again, my y2 minus y1. And that's all going to go over 7/10 minus 3/5. Okay, so let's just deal with the numerator first. Again, out of 3 and 6, I need a common denominator, so my common denominator is going to be 6. So that means I'm multiplying both the top and the bottom by 2. Okay, so that's going to change to negative 4/3. I'm sorry, negative 4/6 minus 1/6. Negative 4 minus 1 is negative 5. Okay, so there's my numerator. Let's take care of the denominator. I'll go ahead and switch colors. So between 10 and 5, my common denominator would be 10. So I have 7/10 minus 6 over 10. Again, I multiplied both the top and the bottom by 2. So 7 minus 6 is 1. So I have 1/10. Okay. So now I'm going to rewrite this. I'm going to do this in 2 steps. Okay, this means I have negative 5/6 divided by 1/10. Okay, again, I know that when I'm dividing with fractions, it's really the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So I'm going to change to multiplication, flip my fraction, so I have the reciprocal of 1/10. Okay, now I like to see if I can cross cancel. I know 6 and 10 are both divisible by 2. So I'm going to divide both these numbers by 2. Again, this is going to make it easier to multiply. Okay, I can't do anything else, so now I'm just going to go across the top and then across the bottom. So negative 5 times 5 is negative 25. 3 times 1 is 3. And again, I always want to double check to see if I can simplify, and I can't. So that means I'm done. My slope is negative 25 over 3. Okay, there's a third example that we can do. And I suggest that you copy it down, maybe give it a shot on your own, and then you can stop the video and then check to see if you did it correctly. Okay, so here are these problems. So I will go ahead, stop the video, try it on your own, and then you can check in. Okay, I'm going to set up slope formula. Again, y2 minus y1, 5/6 minus 1/6, or 1/2. And this is all over 3/2. I'm minusing a negative, so minus a negative, I'm going to change right away to a positive. Common denominator in the numerator is going to be 6. So I have 5/6 minus 3/6. Again, I keep my denominator, and 5 minus 3 is 2. 2/6 can be reduced to 1/3. In the denominator, I'm going to get a common denominator of 4. So that'll change to 6/4 plus 1/4, which gives me 7/4. So I now have 1/3 divided by 7/4. I'm going to rewrite that as a multiplication problem. So keep, change, flip. I can't cross cancel it anymore. I can't cross cancel anything, so I'm just going to multiply it across the top, across the bottom. So I get a slope of 4/21.